Good evening, everybody. I am Brian Sullivan, sitting in for David Asman. Tonight, the public pension crisis and the growing fight over union benefits. This will be the story of the year, and it is one that is sure to pit the public versus the private sector, taxpayers against the unions. Here's the situation in a nutshell. Many states and cities simply do not have the money to meet their pension obligations. Some estimates peg the budget gap into the trillions of dollars. Many pensions are barely half funded, and you may have to pay up to fill in those gaps. Northwestern University professor Joshua Raw broke down the numbers in a recent report. And here's what he said some select city households, you, will owe to fund the city's public pensions. Look at that. In Chicago, every household right now owes under $42,000 to refund those pensions. New York, $38,000 plus. San Francisco, just under $35,000. Boston, a hair above $30,000. And Detroit, at just above $16,000 per household. Now, those are just the hardest hit cities. The problem list is much longer. And don't think it impacts you? Think again. Ask Chicago residents. The Democratic governor of Illinois just passed a law to protect pension benefits. Sounds good. Except Chicago's Democratic Mayor Richard Daley blasting it, saying it could result in a 60% increase in some Chicago residents' property taxes. And look at the benefits in that Illinois law. Here are the new benefits for Illinois police and firefighters. Retirement age at 55, with early retirement possible at 50. They've capped your max pension at 75% of salary, and the maximum pensionable salary is just under $107,000. But do the math on that. Being able to collect 75% on $107,000 a year is an $80,000 a year pension. That's $6,600 per month, starting at age 55. Sounds pretty good. And listen, nobody is saying that public workers are not good men and women. And nobody certainly wants to see anybody else's pension cuts. You probably know somebody who's getting a pension. The problem, though, is that the money is simply not there unless taxes go up on everybody else. And private sector workers who hear about $100,000 per year payouts at 55 years old, while they're still working at 65, certainly not going to be thrilled about paying higher taxes while they're still at the office. But without tax hikes, the real only solution, right, is maybe to cut the payouts. And the unions who fought for and won those benefits are not going to give them up easily, as they shouldn't. So if my predictions, though, are right for the year, this year will be the year that a major U.S. city attempts to and possibly files for bankruptcy to try to break some of those contracts. And it will also be the year where the Republican, Democrat, left-right, red-blue fight fades away. And the new battle will be between old and young. California Republican Congressman Devin Nunes has a new book out, Restoring the Republic, and he joins us now from Washington. Congressman, good to chat with you. You heard the opening monologue, right? You heard our take on the pensions. You are trying to back a law that will unveil the pension obligations to the public, but tell us how severe you believe the real problem to be.
Well, really what we're trying to get at in this bill is to, number one, say the federal government will not come and bail out state and local governments to basically fund these pension plans. We need to get that on the table right away. The second thing that we look at is that we are creating a searchable database on the web for the 2,500 pension plans. Not that many in the whole country, 2,500 pension plans, public employee pension plans across the country, for them to put up their assets and liabilities. And so, you know, what's fascinating about the opposition that this bill is garnering across the country today, the Teamsters, for example, just came out in opposition to my bill. What's amazing about this is that we're trying to protect the public employees because it's, as you said in your monologue, there is no possible way that state and local governments can continue on the path that they're on. I think your New Year's resolution is correct, that we are going to see cities, and it won't just be one, it will be many, that will begin to look at bankruptcy. I don't know if they will actually file bankruptcy, but it is coming. And so the longer we wait, the harder it's going to be. So all this bill is simply saying is, one, we're not going to bail you out, and two, let's be honest with the American public and just put everything online for all Americans to see. We just want to know what's there.
I believe and understand why the unions fight so hard. Listen, they've got deals. They made contracts. Those contracts are legally binding. And whatever people think about the sanctity of contract law these days, they're still there, and nobody wants to see a pension cut. But that said, the unions will often argue, hey, we have a contract, and that's it. They're not trying to figure out where the money is going to come from. If these contracts are upheld, Congressman, do you see major tax hikes coming on the people, the private sector workers that live in the cities that we just talked about and many others?
Well, it depends on the size of the actual unfunded liability. In other words, what is owed to the public employee pensions. When you listen to their own words, they actually admit to close to $1 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Now, you know, remember, $1 trillion was even bigger than the Wall Street bailout. $1 trillion is even bigger than the Obama stimulus bill. So these are big numbers. I don't believe it's just $1 trillion. I say just. Only in Washington you can say that. I believe that there's probably close to 3 at a minimum. I think Dr. Rao talks about $3 trillion. It could be as much as $5 or $6 trillion. So these are big numbers. So then what happens? Essentially, cities can go bankrupt, but that doesn't get them off the hook for having to pay these pensions. So then the next thing is that they're going to try to do a combination of two things: raise taxes and cut employees. And so, you know, and the first thing you'll hear is that, well, are we really going to kick all the police officers and firefighters off the streets? No, that's not what we want. What my bill is trying to do is trying to prevent that from happening by just being honest with the American public. That's all we're asking.
But then you might get to my other prediction for the year, which is that the battle coming is not going to be Republican-Democrat, right? Pensions and taxes and property taxes are a bipartisan issue. The battle could come between the old and the young, the current workers against the retirees, correct? I mean, if you're a 30-year-old cop and you get laid off because somebody's 75 years old and making a couple $1,000s a month in pension, you are going to be ticked off even at your own coworkers.
Well, and that's happening already. You're already seeing public employees being laid off. It's happening in California, actually, where I'm from, in the school system. And it just kind of heated up.
Younger teachers being canned to pay for the benefits of the teachers that have already been through the system.
And to keep older teachers on, even if they have not, and this is a little bit different issue, but it gets to the same point, is that there is no possible way for us to continue to pay these defined benefits, basically things promised in the future, if we're looking at rosy scenarios that are talking about 7 to 11% return on investment. And that's what we're trying to get at here, is just let's try to have some transparency, because if not, you're going to see young teachers being laid off, young police officers being laid off. You're going to see your city rates on your garbage, sewer, water is all going to increase. They're going to start looking at the fees. Many places already this past year are increasing the fees. So this is what's going to happen. It'll be slow tax increase by slow tax increase, and probably ultimately bankruptcy for many local cities and counties.
Congressman, very, very quickly, is this an item that is bipartisan? Do you think Republicans and Democrats will come together on this to find a solution?
Well, you know, my hope is that it will. I mean, we've had basically, you know, all like the major papers, including the Washington Post, which is not exactly a conservative paper, have endorsed this proposal. We've had the Washington Examiner do favorable pieces on this proposal, including the New York Times. So this is something that is bipartisan and needs to be done.
Congressman Devin Nunes, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Good luck this week. Going to be a busy one.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, take care. All right, on deck, guess what some Democrats now claim is their top priority?
Deficit reduction.
Does it reduce the deficit?
We need to address the deficit and the